Jim Ratcliffe's minority takeover of Manchester United is expected to be ratified over these next 2 weeks. We should be getting an announcement. Now, there are a lot of United fans who are concerned that Ratcliffe won't bring any sort of real change. As a minority owner, what can you really do to take control away from the Glazers? What I'm going to do in this video is run through my to-do list immediately at Manchester United when Ratcliffe comes in, what he's got to do, and in priority order. Because, yeah, I'm concerned that this minority takeover won't bring true change. And I think he's got to do these things to show that that change is truly going to be possible when Ineos and Ratcliffe are in charge. You can let me know what you think about this list in the comments below. But let's go straight into it, because as I said, we should be getting the announcement next week. And for me, the first thing on this list is an absolute must. It's communication, right? Because if there's one thing that we learned with all the years of the Glazers being in control, it's how much they lied and constantly lied about communication. You remember what happened after the European Super League and that collapse? We got this letter from Joel Glazer promising more communication. Nothing ever came. Nothing ever happened. And if Jim Ratcliffe wants to win over skeptics and doubters, the absolute first thing that he has got to do is communicate with us fans. Speak to us directly, because that's the one thing that has plagued the ownership. And honestly, that will go quite a long way immediately, not to winning fans over, but to showing fans that it can be different this time with Ratcliffe in sporting control. He's not still going to have full control of the club. I know that. This is only the beginning of the change, but for Ratcliffe to be successful, that communication is absolutely the first priority. Don't do that. And throughout this entire process of this takeover, it's been smoke and mirrors. It's been speculation. That can't happen under Ineos and Ratcliffe. Communication is easily the number one thing. Now, number two on this list for me is speaking directly with Ten Hag. Okay. Now, I don't need to tell him to do that. I'm pretty sure he's going to do it anyway. But Eric Ten Hag has look at the points he's got from his first 50 Premier League games. He's the fastest ever Manchester United manager to reach 30 wins in the Premier League. We're currently the most informed team in the league, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. He's done a lot right. He's got plenty wrong as well, because all of a sudden, it's obvious now, isn't it? No, it was obvious from the very beginning that Eric Ten Hag needed support around him, needed the structure. But speak with Ten Hag. Get those plans all sorted between you. Because, yeah, that's important. I suppose you don't need me to tell you that. Number three, now this is what I was speaking about there with the plans. Jim Ratcliffe has got to lay out these plans to United fans. What's happening in the 3-month short period? What's happening 6 months, 12 months, 5 years? What's the vision of Ineos and Jim Ratcliffe for Manchester United? It's these plans which will make Ineos and Ratcliffe more accountable to what they are doing or what they are not doing. Now, Jim Ratcliffe, this is a letter that he sent to Nice fans 3 years into the Ineos ownership. They spoke a little bit. I don't think there was too much communication directly at the beginning at Ineos. And if you're looking at things that Ineos have got wrong at Nice, there's a lot in those first 3 years. But since this letter, since the audit that happened from Dave Brailsford, since the new sporting director, Florent Gassolfi, came in, the new manager came in, and Nice are now top of Liga. Communication. Laying out your plans. I've said that as my first proper point of actual communication. But in terms of the vision, and that was a big thing that people immediately loved about the Qatari bid, those that were supporting it, was the fact that he immediately came out and said, I'm going to be investing in the community, investing into the team. I think he put numbers forward as well. You'll remember that Jim Ratcliffe, I think they pledged to invest around about 1.7 billion-ish in Chelsea on top of the actual purchase price. That was when Ratcliffe failed to buy Chelsea. But this has to come out. It's not just about communication. It's about explaining what the plans for the takeover are. What are the full takeover plans? Now, maybe we're not going to be privy to that information. Maybe that will still just be left down to speculation. But it is going to, for me, the communication is going to be the breaker of whether this is going to be any true, real change. Because we've been so used to having owners that just lurk in the background, disappear to Florida, no accountability. They don't care. They just close the door and move on. That can't happen if Jim Ratcliffe is going to bring any sort of real change. And in terms of actual immediate change at the club, I don't think this one requires any sort of waiting period at all. I think Richard Arnold has got to be sacked pretty much straight away. All right? Richard Arnold has been a failure. We've had enough time to prove that is the case. I'm not just talking about the whole Mason Greenwood situation. Well, that was a spectacular failure of leadership at our football club. How that whole thing went down. Sacking Richard Arnold should be something that Jim Ratcliffe does straight away. Because you sack Richard Arnold, I'm not saying that all of a sudden, immediately, you're going to bring in Jean-Claude Blanc, because my number 5 point kind of relates towards him. But we can have Arnold getting booted out the door straight away, and Dave Brailsford coming in and being, I don't think he'll go down as our new CEO, but he's probably going to be more of a chairman. Dave Brailsford will be the man that works in between Jim Ratcliffe and Joel Glazer. He's going to be the communicator between the two, because I don't imagine Jim Ratcliffe's going to be too heavily involved on a day-to-day basis. But sacking Richard Arnold should be something that I think happens immediately. Get him away from the club. Get him away from any sort of decision-making process, because he has been a spectacular, in my opinion, a spectacular failure. And just another example of Manchester United and our abysmal leadership that has existed since day one under the Glazers. Whether it was Ed Woodward being an accountant and then all of a sudden becoming our CEO. And he was in control of it. Spectacular failure. Richard Arnold, promoted from within, learning on the job. Spectacular failure. Now, John Murtough is someone I think should be following suit and following him out the door. But I don't particularly think that's going to be something that happens immediately. I think that is going to be something that happens after point 5. Now, this is something that we know is going to happen, and that is the audit of the club structure. This is the exact same audit that Dave Brailsford did with Jim Ratcliffe at Nice. And that, as I said, that was something that was followed quickly by that letter to the fans, and it's something that is going to make a massive difference at our club. A spoiler alert, there's going to be a lot of change, all right? By doing that audit, you then give yourself the ability to, I think John Murtough is going to be sacked, but I don't think he'll be sacked immediately. I think if you sack Richard Arnold immediately, you can't bring Jean-Claude Blanc in straight away, but you can have Dave Brailsford, as I said, who can be the interim between sacking Arnold, Brailsford coming in, and then bringing in Blanc or somebody else as a CEO. When it comes to Paul Mitchell, I don't think that will happen immediately. I don't think John Murtough will be booted out the door straight away. But once you do that audit, I think it's completely obvious that that is going to happen. So for me, I could have written so many more things on this list. There's nothing there about the January transfer window. There's nothing there about a new Carrington, which I think is actually more important than a new Old Trafford, given that that's the place where 90% of the time the players are going to be spending their time. That's how you attract new signings. That's how you keep your players happy. I think the training ground is more important to begin with. Speaking with Ten Hag, that's where you link the vision of the manager to do with everything that you have with your plans. So maybe you would put, I don't know. This is the list that I've gone to. As I said, there's nothing in there about January, because I think these things all need to kind of happen before we start speaking about January signings. I truly want to believe that Jim Ratcliffe coming in, taking 25% ownership of the club, taking sporting control away from the Glazers, is going to make a tangible, long-term difference to how our football club is run. I really want to believe that it's going to change now. And in order for me to believe that, there are things that I think need to happen straight away. And that communication is easily the most important one. Without that communication, if it's just left to more speculation, to what the journalists want to report in the press, then I think Jim Ratcliffe is really going to struggle to win over a lot of fans. Simply by communicating will make a big difference straight away. It's not just about good PR. That's called good ownership. You have to hear from your owner. You have to hear from your leader if you're going to be trusting them. So I've gone for that as my list. Communicate with the fans, speak with Ten Hag. Laying out those full plans is an important one as well. What's the vision? What's the long-term vision? What can we as fans hold you accountable to as owners? Sacking Richard Arnold is something I don't think we need to wait to do, because we've got Brailsford who can replace him temporarily before we get a new proper CEO in and audit the whole structure. That's the 100-day. I don't know if it's going to be a 100-day plan, because it's the 12th of November and the transfer window opens in less than 100 days. Things have got to happen fast. But that's what I think I want to see immediately from Ratcliffe. You can let me know what you think in the comments below. There might be some on that list that I haven't put on there that you want to put on there. What's your top 5 in priority order? That's what I want to know. Let me know what you think. Of course, I'm worried that this Ratcliffe takeover might not lead to any sustainable real change. But it also might, if you can get it right. And that's what I think this list of 5 points sets out to at least try and do immediately.